Hello again. Welcome to another episode of Azania in Therapy with your host, Thabang Tlaka. Today, my guest is a legal practitioner with an LLB. She also has a postgraduate degree in compliance management from the University of Johannesburg. And she has recently completed the directorship course with the Directors Association. She's a co-founder and managing director of Nkateko Mngadi Associates. Her legal experience spans the full spectrum of law, including litigation, criminal law, commercial law, and family law. Her recent work has primarily been in the area of child law. Her accomplishments, including winning the Lawyer of the Year, District Court Award Gauteng, and nationally for her contribution to access to justice by her former employee, Legal Aid South Africa. She may be described as intense, engaged, litigious, passionate, energetic. Please welcome my guest today, Nkateko Mngadi. How are you?
Hi. I'm well, thanks. How are you?
When you are being introduced, does it sound like you or does it sound like someone else? Or do you feel like, is that me?
I never get used to it. I never get used to my bio being read out. I honestly, it's always a shocker. It's just so weird. It's the
No,
weird.
congratulations, congratulations on the good work that you've done. You've done so much, and it's quite impressive. And so, for me, I become curious. What's the drive? Why the interest in law? Where does your story begin with law, and things of a legal nature?
Yeah. So I've always been interested in law from high school. And funny story is, and I actually remember this English teacher vividly who said that, law wouldn't necessarily suit you. You're not harsh, you're not hard. Maybe you should look into psychology. You can listen to people. I see you more as a psychologist, right? And actually, like, I've just always been interested in law and always wanted to pursue law. And the more I do it, actually more I see that I'm actually being called into this industry because I'm very passionate and I love what I do. And not very few, it's very few people that can actually say that they love what they do. And I do. So I've always had that interest in law. I've always had an interest in family law, maybe because of my background. I had to visit the maintenance court. So it's just deriving from there. It's always been there. It's always been there.
Yeah, and I find people who practice, who are into the legal practice, a lot of them have a sense of justice, right? And there's a when we talk as psychologists, some of the hardest people to see are actually people in the legal field, because they think and then they've got an answer for everything. As a newfound convert, I'm quite respectful now, because I've gotten to appreciate the work that you do. In that I see how law is important. How people get assisted, and then I say this is valuable. So I'm actually quite glad to also talk to you. The other thing that you are passionate about is mothers and children. In fact, you're an activist for that. And could you say a little bit more about that?
Yes, and I must say it's not a matter of fact that I am a mother or I have children. It just has nothing to do with that. It has more to do with what I've experienced. For a typical example, if I go to a children's court and the impact a certain case is having on the children, or if I go to divorce and the impact that it's having on the individual. And it can be the mother, it can be the father, it doesn't really matter on the gender. But the impact it has on family law, that derives my interest. That's where the empathetic nature comes in. That's when I feel that, no man, there's gotta be a better way to do this. We don't have to be brutal. We don't have to be harsh. For instance, I love the notion that when two elephants fight, it's the grass that actually gets butchered, not the elephants, And there's that notion that drives me that there are certain actions that actually cause the children to suffer unnecessarily so. And you don't have to go through a bitter divorce. You don't have to have such a a bitter case. All of those
Mhm.
things play a role, and that's why I then become an activist, and that's why I try to say, there's a more humanly and better way to do this. As much as we are lawyers and we are to do law, but there is always a better way.
I like your approach because typically as a psychologist you get a call, right, and somebody would say, listen, I need your services. I'm going through something, and you inquire further, and the person says, no, I'm divorcing, so my partner and I are arguing over children and things like that. Can I bring the child to you? Right there, most psychologists red flags go up, say no, 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 because now this will probably get me in court, and then we have to do all these things. And so when you say, it doesn't have to be bitter, people can have empathy. I think that warms my heart. And then you mentioned the thing about two elephants fighting, and that's the thing that I I find that when two people started a relationship, and maybe the foundation wasn't so great, their relationship doesn't work out, but now there are children in this union, and because they struggle with their own things, I think they also struggle to find what's in the best interest for children. According to you, I mean, or in your experience, what are the typical things that in terms of access, that you find that people are struggling with?
Sure. You know, let me put it this way.
Yeah,
We're speaking passion now.
yeah, yeah. No, you must sit nicely for
I
it.
don't think I don't think access is an issue. What I
Yeah,
think is an issue is you using access to get back at someone.
yeah,
That's the issue. Like I'm saying, there's always a solution and there's always ways that one can resolve certain things. For instance, when you can see the child, when you can call the child. But then when that child is being used as an instrument to punish the other party, then that is the way access, things like that become an issue where, parenting plans and can help and stuff. But things like access, things like co-parenting, they're not issues. The issue is that they use that weapons to fight the battles. That becomes a problem.
yeah. Which you said, when children are weaponized, and what you are talking about, where I can agree, because I've observed that. To me, it almost seems that the child is not an issue. The issue is the pain, the hurt, the you didn't do this, and you went and you got married now, or you betrayed me. So the parents haven't resolved that, and then the child becomes like some proxy. It's like an instrument that people use to fight their battles. And do you find that when it comes to the law, who I don't know if it's a weird question, who has the benefit? Because I know when I'm in circles with men, they usually say, when it comes to the law and excess and women, as a man, you must just forget. Is that true or not? Or not really?
No, not really, hey. And I love how you put it. You put it like a psychologist, hey. And the difficult part about me is that I'm not allowed to be a psychologist with some clients. So
Yeah,
they want me to fight. They want me to be harsh. Listen, I want access and I don't care at what cost you get it. But I love how you put it. And for men, no, 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 no. Both parents have parental responsibilities and rights. And if we can show a good cause in court, right, that the best interests of the child are that they should be with the father, then they'll be given to the father. It's just as simple as that. One thing the court looks at, and one thing people need to understand, is the best interest of the child. It's not the best interest of the mother. It's not the best interest of the father. It's the best interest of the child. So fathers are reluctant sometimes to go for access because they feel that no, the mother will always have the upper hand because we are mothers. I mean, we carry the children. No, we have to look at everything for the best interest of the child. And if it's the best interest for the child to be with the father will be given to the father.
yeah. Let's have an imaginary situation here, right? Here's a couple, they're about to divorce, there are issues, and now they come to you to to help them to help them think about what they're about to do. What would be maybe like the three or four things to say, okay, listen guys, okay, you guys, it's not working, but I need you to remember this about children, about the journey you're about to take. What would you say those are?
Okay, so it's a lot as a lawyer. It's different for me.
Yeah.
I cannot see both,
Yeah, well,
unfortunately.
because you have to pick one person.
Yeah, I have to pick one. So only one would normally approach me because it's a conflict of interest to be acting on two
Yeah.
parties at the same time. And that's why also when it comes to children, normally a child advocate would also be appointed who would look at the child's interest alone. And then I would normally represent either the mother or the father, and then the other party would have their representative. So each
Mm.
person has a representative, right? So I can't see both individuals together. But what I normally advise my clients, like I say, my approach, and of course lawyers are different. My
Yeah.
approach is always look, let's try and find the softer, better way to do this before we become harsh. And please don't
Mm.
get me wrong, I can. Trust, I
Yeah, yeah,
can.
yeah,
But
yeah.
I try to avoid that at all costs. So it's a matter of look, there's an easier way to do this. With things like parenting plan, we can come into an agreement. Um, that both of you can get into, that one can follow. For instance, if somebody wants to know how do I go to access, let me go to the parenting plan. What is the arrangement again? And check on
Mm.
that. And of course, do it in a lawyer type of way so that if someone is in breach, we can always go back to court. So that's the
Mm.
difference. I would always advise that. I would always advise on things like mediation, whereby me and you can sit together with the other party and their lawyer, try to get some sort of settlement agreement, and it's in those things. If they don't work out, then we have to fight. We don't have a choice. But I always try alternative ways to solve the issue. So by the time we go to court, court is not a war zone, but it's actually where we get there peacefully, agree on whatever we agree, and the terms are made in court order.
Mm. And what's the typical picture? Do you find that if you take the route of no, let's first, let's open doors, let's communicate, let's not be harsh at the beginning. Do you find that for most cases that usually helps, or people typically end up in court, or is this something we think that that's what most people do, whereas when mitigation, and what's the typical picture in your experience?
Oh, look. So there are some clients whom I adore, will always put the other one's best interest. Like, look, we can be civil about it. And the
Mm.
best way to be civil about it is if you remember the person that you actually fell in love with in the first place and try to deal with them that way and not focus on anything else, right? Look, we're parting ways, but we can still cooperate, we can still coexist.
Mm.
Right. And so there are clients who do that and who go about it properly. Um, it's a bit rare,
Yeah, it's rare.
you know. So the thing about it is it's emotional. You see, family
Mm.
law is very emotional. Divorce is very emotional. Cases where emotions are involved is very difficult. Merely because you see, if I'm hurt, and you would know this as a psychologist, if I'm hurt or offended, I operate from that space, right?
Yeah.
As opposed to someone who's operating from a space of love and peace. If I'm
Mm.
operating from a space of hurt and
Mm.
offense, that's how I'm going to deal with the next person. And that's the difficulty we find, and causes us to end up actually now. We also have to try and, with outside of the emotions, now fight, because people are operating from a space of hurt and offense. And that's why normally people feel like divorces is hectic, it's harsh, it's whatever. It's because people are operating from, hurt and anger and frustration and offense. That's actually what it is. It's not that divorce lawyers are harsh. It's not that law is horrible, court is horrible. But you're in a hostile environment. People are hurt. People are angry. People are offended. People are bitter. and everybody's acting within those emotions. That's what makes it difficult and harsh.
Yeah, I like the distinction you are making. You're saying, the experience you are going through, right, is difficult, and then to not necessarily say, divorce lawyers, the law is, but I find that that's how people experience it, because I think at the time it's more like, I can't believe we had this union, and then you went and maybe you had an affair, or you had a baby, or you are leaving me. Now you want half of everything I worked for, or you are leaving me with nothing, and everybody, my family saying this, my friends are saying that. So I also feel for the people separate. And now here's this person, you share a life with them, you have children with them. I don't know how. I suppose that's why we need you, because at the time I think I don't see how somebody goes through that, in a nice kind of way. I think it's rough for if you love somebody and your marriage comes, to a demise. So I suppose we need impartial people who can,
You see, and
yeah.
exactly, if I give you a typical example, like from taking from what you said, and it's those things that make it even more difficult. The stigma surrounding divorce, the
Yeah.
stigma of I couldn't make a relationship work, the stigma of my children have to now grow up in a house where the mother and the father is not there. Those societal, community stigmas, everything plays a role. So people come here with emotions. And it's worse for me as a woman because I remember one lady, I was representing her ex-husband. She came to me in court crying, angry, and saying that you are a woman. How can you not understand what this man has done to me? You're a woman. You're supposed to understand what I'm going through, and yet you are fighting for him. And it's those things that typically we have to go through to where you have to be now emotionless. Like, I'm trying here to make you guys depart where both of you can be satisfied. And sometimes it's not possible at all.
Mhm. Yeah, yeah. But I suppose that's where you guys continue. I often think, hey, when people divorce, there must be some mandatory therapy in there some way, or something.
Yeah, and unfortunately, I can't even do it. Look.
Yeah, but I've heard from a number of people who say, I went to my lawyer, and I said I wanted to do this, and this person said to me, look, you are very emotional now. Take some time. Think that think about what you really want. Because I've met different people who've met different lawyers who've said that to them. So I get that people are very sensitive to, look, if we're gonna take this route, you must be sure you wanna do this. And now what I wanted to link this to, talking about children and family, and now the issue of adoption, or the process, right? And I find that when it comes to children, maybe let me start with this. When it comes to children, it's such a very emotive topic. People are struggling to have to conceive. It costs a lot of money. People have their identities tied to this human being I can bring into the world. But then you also have a number of people who don't have parents, their parents died. We have like a number of orphanages, places of safety. And so there are people who want kids, people who are struggling to have kids who need parents. And so adoption comes into the picture. Your work in adoption, how did you get into the work, and what has been interesting to you?
Sure. So abduction is part of family law, right?
Mm,
And how I got in basically is, you help someone with this, you help someone with that, you help someone with this case, and eventually in terms you start doing every aspect of family. Because I initially started doing guardianship applications, right?
mm, mm,
Trying to get people, guardianship involves, people are struggling, like I'm staying with a child, I can't sign at school. They say, no, you can't sign, you need to be a guardian. Oh, I try open a bank account. No, you can't open because you need to be a guardian. And then I have to now go and get them to become guardians of those kids. So that's how I started. Then I got this one referred. Hey, do you do adoptions? I mean, you don't start by automatically you've done. You start by one. That one adoption that you do, then obviously that's how you start getting to know these things. And yeah, that's how I got in.
Yeah.
Doing that.
Yes, were you still completing your thought? Yeah.
No, it's fine. It's fine.
Yeah, what I wanted to ask now, to break it down a little bit, like, so what you said now is, because we take it for granted. When you say a guardian, so what would have typically, how would somebody find themselves in that position? Would it be that that the child would be your sibling's child, or how do people find themselves in a position where they have to apply to be a guardian, and where are the parents, and what's going on in that situation?
So, I think typically everyone is a guardian. I think a lot of people are actually guardians and they just don't know, especially in our community where, your sister passes on, leaves a child. The child comes, moves in with you, but you're the aunt. So nobody, uses the word guardian. And you're staying with that child, you're raising that child, your parents passed on in a car accident, you are over at the age of 18, you're looking after your siblings, you are guardian, so those are the type of situation where you are actually called a guardian to that person. You are looking at the care and the interest of the child, right? You're acting in the space of the children. Then there's that portion where we call it legal guardian, right? That's where I come in, because there's certain things that you cannot do without being the legal guardian of the child. Like I was giving you an example whereby I think I had a client who was actually an older sister to her siblings because their mom passed on in a car accident. And she then had to take over, responsibilities. And a simple thing like opening a bank account for her siblings was becoming a problem, registering them at schools. No, you have to be a guardian. And I know, because by definition, she is a guardian. But sometimes, the law and all its things, you need to be legal guardian. And that's where I come in, and I go in and make an application in court, so you can actually get the title. When we know you've always been a guardian, but just to get a title, just so until the child is 18, by the way, and they can do things themselves, then you can enter into certain legal contracts. Because you're a legal guardian. So you don't need a court application to be a guardian per se. But there are certain legal acts that you need to perform on behalf of a child that will cause you to be, or need you to be, a legal guardian.
No, makes sense. And so you mentioned that you'd work on different parts, right? In family law, you'd be assisting this client with this issue, client with that issue. And so what kind of issues are you typically dealing with? So maybe let's go to adoption, right? Is it people who've tried to have a child and then they struggled, or would it usually be like family members where maybe somebody lost a parent and then you adopt? Or would it be like, we have blended families where somebody would come in a family and then they want to legally adopt? So what kind of people would be adopting in your experience?
So in my experience, I've not come across a client, or clients rather, at least with adoption, I can see both of you. I haven't come across clients where they are able to have children and they want to adopt. No, I haven't experienced that as yet. My experience has been mostly family members, whereby they want to adopt children where they've been staying with for a while for certain reasons. I mean, every couple has a reason why they now want to adopt a child. Like I said to you, we stay and we raise children without having to do any legal process, right? People don't see the need of it. And there are certain things, people who experience blockages, for lack of a better word, when they want to do something and then they say, okay, let me adopt or let me become a guardian. legal guardian to this child. So basically anybody can adopt. You can, it's either you experiencing difficulty having your own biological children. We call it new adoption, whereby you taking a child who, you don't know you're not related in any way whatsoever to the parents of the child, whether they be orphaned or abandoned, or the likes. We call it a new adoption. And then we have family adoption, where you know each other, you know the parents, you are related, the child has always been within that family unit. So it's not new, right? You've always been with that child. So those are the ones that I normally, partake in. I would love to do a new adoption. That would be great. And then just to explain, you see, when it comes to adoptions, we work a lot with social workers, and I mean, big ups to them. Adoption social workers do the most. They work really hard to ensure that the child is ultimately adopted. So yeah, that's how it works.
Yeah. I mean, when you say that, I was just thinking about where I've sat with people and they've struggled with, like, whilst they were adopting, there'll be something like, my social worker and the attorney made it difficult for me, or they gave a child to someone else. Does that make sense? Do you ever come across such stories?
I've heard of that stories, and hopefully wouldn't like to become that type of attorney. But I'll tell you what, you never know unless you hear the story. But I mean, if we find, or the court finds, that it's not, like I've always said, it's not in the best interest of the child that you be the adoptive parent, then the child will not be given to you, or you won't be held eligible for adoption. Because when the social worker comes in, I mean, she goes and she checks everything, right? Your environment, the child's environment. There's a lot of interviews that come into this place. So when we go there, we go and we convince the court that it's in the best interest of the child that you become the parent, but the adoptive parent. But then if we find things along the way, and the social worker observes things along the way, and the court also agrees, then you're not going to become the adoptive parent. And it's not necessarily maybe that the social worker or the attorney gave the child to someone else, but you are probably not even deemed fit at the time to be an adoptive parent.
Yeah, probably. Now, so are you an attorney or a lawyer? So what's the correct way? Because I know there's do people still say lawyer? Talk to my lawyer.
Some people still say lawyer. Some people still say lawyer. But I mean, it's neither here or there. Well, unless you're an attorney and you want to be, an attorney about it. I mean, if you have an LLB degree, you're a lawyer, right?
Okay.
But if you have an LLB degree, you go and you serve your articles, you write your board exams, you get admitted as an attorney, then you're an attorney. Right?
I see.
Just a little bit above being a lawyer, yes.
Because we interchange, and us people who are not in fraternity.
Actually, I'm actually an attorney. Yeah.
Yeah. So to address it properly.
Let me words.
Judge. So now, but to educate us, then, right? What's your role then? In an adoption, what are you typically doing? So when somebody says, "Okay, I want to adopt," what are you specifically helping them with?
Yeah, I'm here to hold your hand legally. That's what I'm helping you with. Yeah, that's just the simplest way and the most layman term way that I can put it. I'm here to hold your hand legally. Yes.
Yeah. So
because there's agreements that need to be drafted. There's things that need to take place. That's where I come in. You do need to go to court. Things are read to you. You need to, be shown what to say, what to do in court, all of those things. So yeah, that's how I come in.
And in court, are you talking to the judge, or so who are you agreeing with? The state, the judge, who's giving you the right?
The magistrate. The magistrate.
is giving you
Yes.
the right
So
to
it
now.
can be done in a children's court, and the children's court is a magistrate. I mean, judges are in the high court.
Ah,
Mm.
perfect,
So it's the
perfect.
magistrate, yes.
Now, maybe through your experience, right, and after you've taken somebody through that process, what warms your heart? Like when does it? After you've helped somebody, what have you observed with them? You see, for me as a psychologist, it would be like when people come in here and they are in one emotional state, right? They are struggling, and then you kind of take them through a process. But when I see them integrated, able to to do life now, they've got skills. They are. I find that they become very appreciative. Do you get feedback like that, or for your own sake, is there a point in the process where you're like, now we've done our job, or this is great, or this is this is good work?
Mm. So as an attorney, it's more of a track record for me. I did a case and we finalized it and it went well as an attorney.
Yeah,
But as an individual per se, I just love it because especially with things like adoption, when you in the beginning stages, you actually know more about the client than in your other typical case, right? So you know what it would mean for them to actually have this child adopted, the emotions behind it, why they need it, the child. You get to meet the children, you get to hear from their stance. And the reason I find adoption specifically beautiful in the sense that the way it affects the life of each person, whether it be the child, whether it be the parent. I mean, especially if the child is not from a very, very good background and they have been given the opportunity to actually be something that they could have never imagined or dreamed of. And I don't even mean wealth. You know, sometimes people think that it's the rich that's supposed to adopt. No, man. I think even, providing that love, the environment of someone cares for you, the environment of somebody cares about your well-being, they want to see you succeed. It's not even financially or anything otherwise.
mm,
And they from maybe an abusive background, they are, they were abandoned, they weren't treated properly, and to see that happening and the child being happy that wow,
mm,
I'm adopted, meaning that I'm actually your child now, for lack
mm.
of a better word. It might not be biological, but officially I'm your child. That's just a wonderful thing to see.
Yes, I mean, for us, from a developmental perspective, I think we underestimate the value of a stable home. So it's when you say, like, people think adoptions are for wealthy people, but a human being who has a stable home, a human being who knows that there are witnesses, there are people who care about my day, things I dream about, people who relate to me. Like, we underestimate the power of the relationship that other humans have with you. In psychology, it's the relationship that heals. Even with trauma, a lot of the trauma we get is from other people, but a lot of the healing comes from people saying, "We see you, we want you, be with us." And I think we underestimate what that does for a person. And now, even now, when you talk about love, right? I was curious about when you adopt somebody, and then this person grows up in front of you, and then you want to put them in a will or leave something to them, right? Do you find, I don't know if you've come across this issue, do you find that other family members later have an issue, or struggle with somebody who was adopted? Because I've found that, especially when I do work with grief, people say, after the funeral, they had a meeting, the family had a meeting, and then they told me, "Wena ebile ha se wena wa ka mo. You don't belong here." And so this thing that so and so left, such and such a thing to you, that doesn't happen. I don't know if you've ever thought about that.
No, it does happen, definitely. And of course, the law being the law, once you're an adoptive child, you are entitled to an inheritance, right?
Yeah.
As to opposed to you are not adopted. And, now we have to go to court and actually prove the fact that, you were raised by them, you stayed all these years with them, they treated you as a child and you belong there.
Mm.
So you've made it a bit easier for us not to having to now go to court and prove all of things because you are adopted legally, right? And if you are facing challenges with people fighting you for your inheritance, then that's where all the papers come in and you can show that. Right. Other than that, now we have to go to affidavits and etc. And go fight it in court. So it does happen. I mean, it happens with biological kids sometimes, the fighting. So
Mm.
imagine you as a as a child who's been adopted into that family. So yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I
And
must say that even as a stepfather, when you feel that, look, I want to, I'm raising you, I'm married to your mom, and I actually want to take you as my child and do an adoption. That's also perfect, so that they can inherit
mm,
your things because you want them. You are their father. That's what I'm saying. I think most of our families are guardians and they are parents, but we just
mm,
never think of the legal implications of it and how we can do it legally. Like a typical example of stepfathers. You can adopt. You can adopt that particular child, and there's also consent. If maybe the father is involved and the father doesn't want to be involved, they can give consent to you adopting their child, and maybe sometimes with some stepfathers or stepmothers, the other party passed on, and now you actually want to take on that role, get the child to also have your surname. All of those things, you can do that.
mm. And what you say now, I mean, you make me think of just like it's almost as if so us African people, we know that like we have somebody will say this is my brother, this is my sister, but but when you ask like so, but how are you related? They're like, no, okay, we are cousins, but no, we are brothers and sisters. But then there's this legal part where what you're explaining now that it might have some implications in terms of inheritance and things like that. Do you think that we should start a campaign to educate people, like, but this is important, don't just take it for granted, don't just take it for granted that you live with somebody, you're not mistreating them, but maybe take it a step further, and then if you can adopt them, do so.
Yeah, there's a lot that you can do. There's a lot that you can do, and definitely a campaign or a jump at the opportunity to
Yeah.
be part of. For instance, some people would say, no, I don't want to adopt. Then I would advise, then make sure you have a will, right? So that that child is actually covered. That brother or sister that's, it's there, but biologically it's not there. And then it also has implications legally on it. So I would say, then have a will. Make sure that child is covered right there, that this person has a share. Things like that as African people that we can put in and make life better when you are not here, because the implications of you not being here and the drama that happens with dying interstate, or rather say, let me say, dying without a will, is a lot with African people. So
Hey,
yes, we need to
that's a story
definitely
for some other
say,
day. Mm.
yeah, that's a story for another day. But we definitely need to educate our people. Yes,
Yeah.
definitely.
No, thank you very much. I mean, talking to you, for me, I mean, I come across such cases from a psychological point of view where people are distressed. But talking to you, I mean, you're clarifying things for me. And maybe lastly, what do you think we miss? When you after you've taken your journey, what are the gems or things you've learned that you think maybe society at large needs to think about or consider when it comes to adoption?
Sure. You know what I think people are afraid of, especially with new adoptions. With everything, there's always I don't know. I'm looking for the word. Maybe stigma to you doing something, right? Um, Especially I'm gonna say African people again. If I adopt this child, um, what about their ancestors? What about their, how's that going to impact me? What about the things they've inherited from their parents? How will I know all of those things? So, there's this stigma that comes with taking somebody who's not biologically yours, and the medical things behind it, and the ancestral things for some other people's beliefs behind it. They play a role, and what would other family members say? Will they be treated like part of the family? Will my dad be okay of passing on his surname to somebody who's not of blood? Sure. it's a lot. It's a lot.
Yeah.
But really, adoption is such a gift. If you look at it as a gift to someone else that you could be giving to them, then it doesn't matter any other challenges you might face. You will take care of that gift that's been bestowed to you and upon you to pass it on.
Yeah. No, I mean, for me, what you just said now, I think there are difficulties, but I think it's things we need to work around, maybe people like yourself and people who deal with the spiritual need to, have conversations. You say, okay, if that's what you're concerned about, this is what we can do. But I do think for me, from just studying how human beings develop, I think the gift of just taking a person and loving them like you do such a powerful thing. And so people like you who are assisting people to find loving homes, to be cared for, I think that's so necessary. I think we all need to do our part, but where a human being needs to be loved, I think we need to jump at that opportunity.
Yeah, I mean, definitely, definitely, and I think you
And
can hear. I'm more than an attorney.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
I'm
And
more than an attorney. I mean, I could have quickly entered into the spiritual aspect of adoption, but my role here is to be an attorney and the role of the
oh,
interview. But I mean, it's a lot. It's a lot, and there's honestly a lot people can do and should be informed about, before actually legal. For instance, if I give an example also for divorce, you can do post-marital counseling. It also works before we go there. So that when you do certain things, the emotions out of it are trying to dealing with that because you're taking a major step. I mean, legally, if I approach it legally, I'm just gonna say you're changing your legal status
mm,
from married to single.
mm,
So what? Not a big deal,
mm,
right? But it is
mm,
actually a big deal
mm.
because there's a lot that comes with you changing your status from being married to single. And for some people, it can be traumatic. It also will affect how you treat future relationships. It will affect how you deal with things in the future. A lot comes into being that I feel we can work together as different professionals to ensure that things go the way they're meant to. But in any event, we're not the same people, but the core being of my practice is that, when we do that, I still need you to be a sane person. I still need you to be a human being who's still open to love again, who's still open to certain things. I still want us to respect each other in court. I still want you to respect the other person. And I think I've fought, for lack of a better word, especially with female clients on this one, where they felt that I'm not on their side or I'm not doing what they want me to do or what they're telling me to do, merely because I want to approach it in this type of way. No, you're taking his side. He wants to leave me with this. So it becomes difficult, I know, for a person like me, an empathetic person like me, to deal with certain clients. And I don't mind us parting. It's the core value of my practice as an individual, right? If we're not going to agree in the way we do things, and if you want me to be the TV type of attorney who, be changing this to hell with or whatever, or whoever gets affected, it's a bit difficult. But my core values and the values of my practice is that that's how I do things, and I'm proud of that, and that's what makes me unique in the way that I handle these type of matters, right? Whether we can agree or disagree, look, there's a lot of us, there's a lot of attorneys, you can pick any one of us. But the core for me is that after all is said and done, you must be able to sit with yourself and be okay.
Yeah. No, thank you. I think that's a good place to pause it. Thank you for the honor. And time is money, and you are doing wonderful work. Thank you for taking out the time in your day to talk to me, and hopefully the people who who watch this. I think they'll, I mean, I've certainly learned a few things. I think this is helpful. I think this is good work, and Godspeed and continue.
Thank you so much, Thabang, for having me. Hey, and for inviting me. I really, really enjoyed this. I also learned a lot from you, from a psychological point of view, how to put things. Sometimes it's difficult how to put things in a certain way to clients, and I think that's where you guys come in and we can help each other with the try not to really always speak legalese, I say. But yeah, thank you so much for the opportunity to come and share my story, pour out my heart. And yeah, once again, thank you so much.
Wonderful.